Welcome to 2 Cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your hosts. That's Motiz, and I'm Rue. And we're back on the never-ending topic. I thought we were done with this topic, but it just will not go away. Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, the two, they're just like linked at the hip, But Terrence Crawford goes on the podcast. I'm sorry, I forget the name of the podcast, but ran by UFC fighters, right? My first time actually being privy to the podcast, and a lot of controversy came from Terrence Crawford on there. There was the Manny Pacquiao statements, but today I kind of want to focus on the Errol Spence statement of Terrence Crawford saying Errol Spence, if his career ended today, is not a Hall of Famer. I know we've been seeing a lot of former boxers, current boxers discussing that, but just tell me your initial thoughts when you heard those comments.
Blasphemy. Blasphemy. He is out of his mind. And I never took Terrence Crawford to be a hater, but there gotta be hate. It gotta be something. I don't know if it's dislike to Errol Spence. If I was literally sitting across from Terrence Crawford, I would have kind of challenged him in a way like, okay, if you don't believe he's a Hall of Famer, then who do you believe is a Hall of Famer out of your contemporaries? And I guarantee you start to see the bricks fall. You start to see the holes, and it's going to show further evidence of what he has against Errol Spence. I'm not sure. It's obvious Errol Spence is a Hall of Famer by far. We got Rocky in the Hall of Fame, Boxing Hall of Fame.
Don't get me started on that.
The Boxing Hall of Fame is not difficult to get into. People widely consider Sean Porter as a Hall of Famer. So I'm not gonna lie, it was disgusting to just hear that.
Well, first things first, I don't think he was challenged because I think it was kind of clear they don't know boxing that well, because it's like everything Terrence said. They were just, oh, yeah. Matter of fact, yeah. And then Terrence was checking on it. They were like, oh, Errol Spence was never unified. Terrence was like, no, he was unified. He was never undisputed. You know what I'm saying? So it was clear that their boxing knowledge wasn't there. So they didn't have the ammunition to challenge anything. You know what I mean? I think it would be very different if he went on a boxing podcast and made the same comments. But you mentioned you never took Terrence Crawford for a hater. In this case, it does come off as hating, but you know what I think it is, bro? I think it's a bit of delusion in a sense. I think he and I don't think this is consistent across everyone, but when it comes to Errol, I think it's like, yo, I beat this guy. I did everything I was supposed to do. I was supposed to get the praise, get all the honors, which he has. Look how much his stardom has took off since he beat Errol Spence, right? But I don't know. Like, I think for him, there's some kind of love. Maybe it's the Errol's like the people's champ or something. I don't know, but there's something that the respect that Errol still gains, something that Terrence Crawford feel like he should have took from him, and it should have been his that he hasn't gotten. I don't know what it is. So it seems like it runs deeper than the accolades, deeper than the accomplishments. You know what I mean? So, but I also do think the competitive nature in Terrence Crawford, when he hears, oh, Errol Spence, the Hall of Famer, I think instantly he compares it to himself. Like, oh, he has to have done more than I've done because I'm a Hall of Famer. However, that's the incorrect way to think, because Terrence Crawford, you're not a baseline Hall of Famer. You're like a first ballot. You know what I'm saying? So you're not the threshold. It's not like, oh, I'm borderline, so you have to be above me. You get it? Like you're a first ballot. So there are people who've done less than you who also deserve, who have accomplished less than you, that also deserve to get in. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And then if you look in the Boxing Hall of Fame again, you're going to see a lot of fighters in there that has not accomplished what Errol Spence has accomplished, especially, fighting the likes of Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Ugas. He lost to you, Terrence Crawford, but, he was a unified champion, collected all those belts one by one, let alone his tear back in 2015, 16. You know what I mean? So,
I think people I think the Ricky Hattons of the world are in the Hall of Fame, Arturo Gatti. And, these are guys, but, great fighters in their own right? But I just think for the sport of boxing, Errol Spence has actually accomplished more, right? I'm not even talking about any of this the feel good stories, and even when it comes to feel good stories, Errol Spence coming back from the car crash, you know what I mean? Facts. But one of the claims Terrence made is that, Errol's a weight bully. He's only ever fought at one weight. And I'm like, but does that mean you can't go to the Hall of Fame because you've only fought at one weight? Because like I just don't think that makes sense, right? Marvin Hagler, Gennady Golovkin's going to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So like, why can't you go to the Hall of Fame if you fought at one weight class?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's up with him. You know, and you bring up a good point, especially talking about that it factor, right? Or that special item that he feels like Errol Spence has that he doesn't have, or he hasn't really, conquered yet. Like I beat this guy. He shouldn't even probably be mentioned in the same breath as me. But it's like nobody even is saying that he's comparable to or saying he's on your level. We're just saying he's a Hall of Famer, right? Like, you know what I mean? And just the fact, and going back to, let's say the bid war, right? Not necessarily a bid war, but when they were looking to have Terrence Crawford wanted to fight Fundora, and how Errol Spence kind of skipped the line, right? In his own words. And the team, Fundora's team's like, no, we want to fight Errol Spence, right? Obviously, because of the money that's going to come from that. And I think things like that is probably also leaving a bad taste in his mouth. Pause. And I think that's also a reason why it's, and I'm calling it hate at the lower level, not necessarily through like, but maybe he might be a little envious of that. I don't know. But clearly this is coming from emotion and not being objective.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. And no, bro, like I said, it's like Terrence's career has just taken off. So it's crazy. I don't know. And this could be his real life opinion, but I would have been super interested to see if they would have asked him before Errol Spence, does he think Sean Porter's a Hall of Famer? I would have been super interested to hear that opinion. And, that would probably help me gauge more. Is it just an Errol Spence thing, or is it just you're a hard critic thing?
Right. Because you might be right. Maybe he's just a hard critic, right? But I don't know. Something tells me otherwise. Like if you sat down with him and was like really asking him, then you start to you start to see holes. And then also like I don't know if he it's baffling to me because you say Errol Spence is not a Hall of Famer. So then when you're comparing yourself to the greats, that means that your career wasn't illustrious at all. If Errol Spence is the best name on your resume and he's not a Hall of Famer, then what type of career did you have in comparison to the greats, especially if you say you're going to go beat Canelo, and if you consider Canelo Hall of Famer, that's only one Hall of Famer in your career. So why would you be considered top 3 according to you? It just doesn't make sense. I don't think he really thought it through, to be honest with you.
I think, one thing I noticed in the interview too, I think there's a lot of moving the goalpost. Lately he has, and I'm starting to see other people do it. So he's actually influencing other people to do it. And I'm telling you, nobody was doing this before, right? He's starting to, the Kell Brook thing, right? Which I know Errol Spence considers as one of his best wins, if not his best win. Like at the time that Errol beat Kell Brook, people were not not saying, oh, that's not a good win because of this happened, because everyone's like, okay, Triple G broke one eye socket, Errol broke the other eye socket. So the previously broken eye socket wasn't the one that was re-injured, right? But people weren't saying, oh yeah, like that's a cherry pick win, or you only beat him because of this. But now, like when Terrence Crawford has created that, that notion, now people are starting to say it. But the thing is, if you say Kell Brook was damaged goods and he wasn't what he used to be, then people are just going to use that same argument for Errol Spence, right? Debunking what is the best win of your career. People are going to say Errol Spence's injury is not what he used to be. So then should credit be stripped from you for the Errol Spence win? You know what I mean? So I think there's a bit of moving the goalpost there, because he said, Kell Brook, this, that, and third, but then he wants credit for beating Kell Brook because Kell Brook was on a 3-fight win streak at 154. You know what I mean? So to me, I just saw a bit of moving the goalpost. But like I said, the people he were interviewing with, I don't think they had the boxing savvy and the knowledge to challenge him. So would love to see the comments on a different podcast.
Yep, I agree.
Yes, get some deeper dialogue, move the conversation along. Maybe if he were to go to the Porterweight podcast, Sean Zattel, that it would be interesting. It would have to be an episode where Carson is there. Though. I like when Sean Zytel and Carson are there. When it's just Ant and Sean Porter, I kind of started to lose a little bit of interest. I mean, I still like the show, you know what I'm saying? But Sean Zytel and when Carson's there, I think if Terrence were to bring that argument, I think we would all get more knowledge, more open-ended questions, and forcing more answers and more thought-provoking situations, you know?
Right. Agree.
Yeah. But nevertheless, jump in the comment section. Tell us what you think. Is Errol Spence a Hall of Famer? If not, why? Before you answer the question, make sure you look at everyone who is in the Hall of Fame.